Hey, it's the Midnight Raven, and today we are doing part 2 of the cemetery tour. Now, I've actually found some information about the cemetery. So, by the late 18th century, the burial space to the citizens of King's Lynn in the collective churchyards of All Saints, St Margaret's, and St Nicholas was running out. The establishment of St James's burial ground, now St James's Park, but now this was soon to fill up, and the population in South Lynn expanded from 701 to 4,772. You can imagine how many the population has now. So this is a second burial site. You have the one across the road, which I have already filmed, and then you have this one. So the cemetery was consecrated on the 26th of May 1856 on account of the Bishop of Norwich. So this is the second graveyard we're going to look round. There is one over the way, and then there is this one, and I have just had the most beautiful encounter with the cemetery cat. I will put pictures on my Instagram and my Facebook and everything of the most adorable cemetery cat I may have ever seen. It was fluffy, it was cute, and yes, I did stop for some cuddles. I don't know whether he's the resident cemetery cat. You do get it sometimes where there are cats that are consistently in a cemetery and they gravitate towards the cemetery. But it is absolutely stunning here. And like I said, it was opened back in, I think it was 1850. So this is one of the more older cemeteries that I have been to myself. But it is beautiful. Once again, it's kind of like the... Once again, it's kind of like the other side of the cemetery, although I do feel this is a bit more open planned. And there are a lot more pathways around this one. We're going to walk around the outside first. So once again, as you can see, it is beautiful. Even built on a slight little hillside this side compared to the other side, but you are going to find the same issues once again: the subsidence, the leaning, the erosion. The deer standing right there. There is just a muntjac deer just hanging out in the cemetery. How beautiful is that? And we managed to catch that on film as well. There you go. He's standing right there. There we go. See, I told you there is plenty of life in a graveyard. You just have to take your time, walk around it, and you will spot rabbits, muntjac deers apparently, hedgehogs, squirrels, birds, butterflies, the occasional moth. If you're lucky, my personal favourite of a graveyard is looking for moths. Magpies gravitate to graves, crows, ravens, beetles, ants. Not partial to ants, but there is enough grass here for them to want to come. And it is stunning. Dragonflies, mayflies. You'd be surprised how many animals actually gravitate to a place where death is prominent. I know, it does sound strange that there is that much life in a place that has that much death. But it is true. There is so many species of animals that you can find in a graveyard. If you just take the time to sit there and appreciate nature for what it is, that you are here for a very short time and then you die. So as you can see, there is a little path going around the outside. It is a very quaint little path, and I do like the fact that it surrounds the graveyard quite nicely. Obviously, over time, there are graves that unfortunately have been overgrown, and nature has took hold. Sometimes they're the more beautiful graves, the ones that are in the roughage, are in the sidelines. But this cemetery has the same problem as all cemeteries: the subsidence, the weather, erosion. vandals. A lot of people don't vandalize graves anymore. Obviously, grave robbing, thank God, is not a thing anymore, although in other countries it might be. Graveyards and grave robbing have all become a bit of a time gone past. People can actually donate their organs, donate their bones, and donate their bodies to science now. You don't have to have people robbing graves to sell them to people to do autopsies and to do experiments. People freely give their organs now. Back in the day, you know, grave robbing was rife. And there are famous graveyard robbers that nicked hundreds and hundreds of graves to sell to scientists, to sell to surgeons who wanted to perform autopsies or experiments with different techniques to try and cure different diseases throughout the centuries. Each country is kind of different when it comes to their burials, the layouts of the graveyards. My personal favorite is a mausoleum. I think it's a good way to be buried. And then obviously you do get the bigger ones, the tombstone ones sort of here, where they had such a huge weight put on the top to deter grave robbers. Doesn't always work though. Here you have some more information, and it tells you all about the graves. In front of us are various members of the wealthy Cook family. So yeah, family plots were always a thing back in the day as well. Families could buy certain plots, like the one in front here, and have their entire family buried in. Sometimes they would then put a fence round the outside of the graves, like this one, to signify a family plot. Others went for the more typical one buried on the other, whether it's your husband, your wife, your son, your daughter, grandparents. Some people go for more elaborate graves, the bigger the better. Back in the day, the more elaborate grave gave you more of a standing, and obviously peasants who couldn't afford to have a substantial grave obviously had a cross, a very small cross, possibly made out of wood. The more elaborate graves, effectively back then, was more money. If you had a rich, wholesome family, you could afford to have an elaborate gravestone like this. If you had a more common family, you were lucky to even have a gravestone. Most people had wooden stakes with graves. Some people didn't even have gravestones. You do get unmarked graves as well. If you go back to the war, when people's bodies were found in deteriorating conditions, it was hard to give everybody, unfortunately, a name. So there are unmarked graves, but they still have a stone of some kind. This is a very small graveyard compared to the other side, I feel. And then again, to your left, the site of the Atkin and Capers chapels, which are immediately in front of the section H, considered to be the most respectable part of the consecrated area. So in the middle, you have a tree. I'm guessing that would be a Christmas tree at some point. It's very weird. But you do have the little lanes that go right the way around the outside. And you do once again have the trees, which give the graveyard that very comforting. Obviously, you still do have nature overtaking most of the graves. It is unfortunate, but nature is a wild beast herself. And as you come down, you get these beautiful little secluded areas. I do wonder why graves don't have more benches. I've always wondered that. Cemeteries, graveyards, why do you not have benches? Why do you not have benches where people can sit and contemplate their loved ones? I would love cemeteries and churchyards to have more benches. Is it just me? And then here again, this is usually the case that Roman Catholics were buried in unconsecrated sections of public cemeteries. So Catholics can technically be buried in a cemetery, but they are generally buried off to one side, basically. However, from its earlier days, the Hardwick Cemetery had a section reserved exclusively for Roman Catholics. So I'm going to guess that this is the Roman Catholic bit. The result of there being so many Irish labourers in the town, they decided to do a Catholic part. So it is unusual to have Roman Catholics buried in what is predominantly a Christian churchyard / cemetery, but they do have a part for Roman Catholics. It is good to see, I guess, a bit of exclusivity for the Christians to have their own, but then also to come together as religion to have two parts, the Christian part and the Roman Catholic. Because Roman Catholics and Christians are very, very different. Very different viewpoints, very different religion. In some ways similar, in a lot of ways different. So going round, you will see, like I said, these little family plots. Again, if you wanted to be buried with your family, you could buy the entire plot. Back then, it would have probably been cheaper to buy the entire plot than it would to have bought a single space, because if you wanted your loved ones to be with you, securing your spot ahead of time probably saved you a lot of money. Nowadays, to be buried, the average grave is probably £300 to £400 at the bottom, although you can run into thousands if you want the more elaborate headstone, if you want it inlaid, if you want a design on it. People nowadays don't go for very elaborate gravestones, I must admit. They do go for the more simpler because it is more cost effective. So here again, the Burial Act in 1851, under which the majority of municipal cemeteries were established. So again, finding out more about the graves, if you want to stop the video so you can read this. It is a beautiful graveyard, if nothing else. And it's heritage lottery funded as well, which is also, I guess, something nice to see. Excuse the siren in the background, that is not included in my video. If you can hear a siren. There is one very unique grave in this cemetery that I wanted to share with you. Above all graves, although all graves to me are impressive and mean something to an individual person, this grave personally is my favourite grave I think I have ever seen. And that sounds weird to have a favourite grave, I know, but it's probably one of the most favourite graves that I have ever seen. And it is a grave with a boat on the top. So I'm going to assume that this person was either a sailor or military, and he decided, or his loved ones decided, that the best way to celebrate would to be a grave with a boat. Unfortunately, you cannot read much of the writing, but I think this is probably one of the most simple yet heartfelt graves I have ever seen. And this isn't as big as the other side. This is more quaint, more compact of a graveyard / cemetery than the other side, which you will have seen in a previous video. It does give me a sense of peace and a sense of calm. And like I said, if you don't have loved ones in a graveyard, I get the weirdness of just going to a graveyard. But sometimes it is nice to reflect back on the years, the loved ones you have lost. And one day you will actually be in a cemetery or a graveyard yourself. So, you know, take hold of your loved ones around you, appreciate the moment, but also realize the people that have come and gone, and that one day that will also happen to you. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I've tried to give you as much information as I can in a very short space of time. This is a beautiful cemetery. It's the Hardwick Road Cemetery in Great Yarmouth, in King's Lynn. It has two sides. One side is a bit more compact and quaint. The other side, I feel, is a bit more open and a bit more airy and has a more comforting feel. But no matter what you do, hold your loved ones, tell them you love them every day, and I will see you very soon for another video. Take care and have a wonderful afternoon, no matter what you're doing. Bye, guys.